Meet the most successful club in English football, Manchester United. Founded as Newton Heath in 1878, they've boasted some of the game's greatest ever players, from Bobby Charlton to George Best, Rooney and Ronaldo, and a cast of others in between. United has a fan base that extends far beyond the walls of Old Trafford, making it one of the world's most valuable football brands. And thanks in part to their record-breaking $1.1 billion 10-year deal with Adidas, they're one of the most valuable teams in world sport too. With the Busby Babes, the Class of '92, Sir Alex, and the Special One, the Red Devils can't get enough of the truth. Every great football team has a great place to call home. For FC Barcelona, it's the Camp Nou. Just over 600 kilometers west stands the Stadio Bernabeu, home to Real Madrid. And if Bayern Munich finds friendly refuge at the Allianz Arena, fans of Manchester United have called Old Trafford home since 1910. However, they've had to endure extreme rain, snow, and even a World War II bombing before ongoing makeovers turned it into the largest club stadium of any football team in the United Kingdom. But for those fans looking to get some Z's before entering their football home, there's a place opposite Old Trafford that doubles as a true home away from home, simply the Hotel Football. Home to the Old Trafford Supporters Club, the four-star hotel is the brainchild of Manchester United legends and key investors Gary Neville and Ryan Giggs.
This particular site, Hotel Football, come about, there was a piece of land available. We wanted to put an Old Trafford Supporters branch on this plot, but we had planning permission for an 8-storey building, so we were going to have 8 stories of supporters club. It was so we decided to put a hotel on it.
A Manchester United fan's dream. The top floor houses a 5-a-side football pitch, nicknamed Heaven, which boasts panoramic views of the city and of Old Trafford, of course. Coming up, United after all these years. Founded as Newton Heath before changing its name to Manchester United in 1910, the Red Devils have witnessed 2 great eras in over a century of football. The first one was led by one of football's greatest minds, Sir Matt Busby. There once was a time when Manchester wasn't exactly a hotbed for happiness. In the early 1800s, 80,000 men, women and children marched to St. Peter's Fields on the outskirts of town to demand parliamentary reform before being charged and crushed by cavalry. The world's first industrialized city took another hit a century later with the arrival of Sir Oswald Mosley and the fascists.
Sooner or later, in the lives of great nations, comes the moment of decision, comes the moment of destiny.
Ever since Manchester United last won a major trophy in 1911, the team and its supporters were desperately looking for their moment of destiny too. Having spent the interwar years bouncing between the first and second divisions of English football, they finally found their football savior from an unlikely source. because Matt Busby was a player for two of Manchester United's greatest rivals, Manchester City and Liverpool. But when he was offered the reins as United's bench boss back in 1945, he jumped at the chance. And despite inheriting a mediocre side and an Old Trafford decimated by German air raids from World War II, he turned the team into a domestic force. United were runners-up in the top flight 4 times between 1947 and 1951. They took home the 1948 FA Cup before winning the League Championship in 1952. But with his team aging, Busby did something relatively unheard of by successful clubs. Rather than buy big names to replace the older players, he promoted local younger ones. And just like that, the Busby Babes were born. Together, they'd win the 1956 and 57 league titles and finished runners-up to Aston Villa in the 1957 FA Cup final. Bright-eyed and full of ambition, their assault on the European Cup in 1958 would take them to Yugoslavia, where they would face Red Star Belgrade. But for many of the Babes, that trip would be their last. It was a spirited affair in Belgrade, where Red Star and the Red Devils battled it out for a 3-3 draw. With the result, United made it 11 straight matches without a loss and moved into the semi-final of the European Cup. Heading back home on a high, things came crashing to a tragic halt.
Munich airport, and wreckage that tells the story of the dreadful disaster.
After stopping at Munich to refuel, their plane, which also carried crew members, businessmen and journalists, slid off the runway and crashed into a house.
When I got out of the plane, the hoses, the firemen had arrived, so I must have had a blackout. And the first person I saw when I got out was, who looked alive, was Mr. Busby. The others, everybody else, were unconscious. So I stayed with Mr. Busby and tried to keep him warm, you know. I was rubbing his hands and kept trying to keep him comfortable, but he seemed to be in really bad shape.
Even having had his last rites read to him 3 times, Busby was one of the lucky ones. He survived, but 23 did not. The Munich air disaster destroyed one of the greatest groups of players in English football history.
Manchester United were at the forefront of football in Europe. It was very, very important that Matt Busby came and he said that we will be a force in Europe very soon.
It took a decade, but Busby was right. Having rebuilt the team once again, he finally brought United to the European Cup final in 1968 with a new generation of babes.
The man on whom the real burden rests, Matt Busby, has lived 11 dedicated years for this moment. Surely the prize couldn't elude him now.
Despite a Benfica opponent that featured the late Portuguese great, Eusebio, the elusive European Cup didn't elude him. Manchester United won 4-1 at Wembley Stadium, becoming the first English team to hoist the trophy to the sky.
The dream of Matt Busby is realized at last. So often, so near since the Munich tragedy, now they've arrived. Manchester United, kings of Europe.
In a quarter century with the club, Busby won 5 First Division titles and 5 FA Charity Shields, to go with 2 FA Cups and the coveted European Cup. But if Busby laid the foundation for greatness, another manager built the kingdom from which United continues to reign today. After Busby's departure, many greats left too. George Best, Dennis Law, and Bobby Charlton. Soon United would once again be relegated, and despite returning to the First Division, taking home 2 FA Cups in 1983 and 1985, the Red Devils were still in limbo. Then an abrasive football genius from Glasgow came along, Alex Ferguson. 5 years after his arrival, he would guide United to a 1-0 victory over the ominous Red Star Belgrade in the 1991 UEFA Super Cup. A strong signal after their Cup Winners' Cup title victory against Barcelona. And like Busby before him, Ferguson could rely on a group of young lads known as the Class of '92 to help guide the Red Devils to heights never reached before. They were legends for club and country. Nicky Butt, David Beckham, Ryan Giggs, the Neville brothers, and Paul Scholes. Known as Fergie's fledglings, they announced themselves to the world by winning the Youth FA Cup in 1992.
You know, when we first moved up there, obviously we didn't know each other. We wasn't the best of friends when we first moved up, but we became that.
Ferguson saw the potential and decided to pull off a Busby by making them first-team players despite their youth. Busby proved that ploy could be fruitful, but it still wasn't a popular choice.
Remember the first game we played in the League Cup, it ended up being discussed in Parliament about us all playing together at such a young age and unknowns. And he was brave enough to do it, take the rules on, if you like, and like I say, it worked.
It worked so well, in fact, he won the 1996 league title with what the press called kids. 3 years later, they do much better than that. The 1998-99 campaign saw the club become the first team to win the Premier League, FA Cup and UEFA Champions League. The treble was topped off with an Intercontinental Cup at the end of '99, and shortly after, Ferguson would be knighted. Sir Alex spent 26 seasons with the club, leaving the bench in 2013 after having become the club's longest-serving manager, winning 38 trophies, including 13 Premier Leagues, 5 FA Cups and 2 UEFA Champions League titles. And like the great Busby, Ferguson was immortalised with a statue of himself outside Old Trafford, a fitting tribute for a United legend.
It's a proud moment that, normally people die before they see the statue, or people see the statue. I'm outliving death.
After the break, United's greatest starting 11. Manchester United has won the most silverware out of any team in the Premier League era and out of any English team in football. Hence, there is a plentiful list of world-class footballers when tackling the challenge of selecting a best starting 11. When it comes to goalkeepers, there is one man who stands out well above the rest: Denmark's Peter Schmeichel. Twice crowned the best goalkeeper in the world, Schmeichel was brought in for peanuts by Ferguson in 1991, just £500,000. Ferguson himself said he was the bargain of the century. He was right. An imposing figure between the pipes, the Great Dane was physical, vocal and intimidating, and was part of the treble team of 1999. At right back, nobody personified the passion behind playing for the Red Devils better than Gary Neville. While his technique wasn't phenomenal, his positional sense was. And when playing with David Beckham along the right-hand side of the pitch, their partnership was perfect. A Red Devil to the core, the former captain may be retired, but he still harbours hatred towards the team's historical rival, Liverpool.
I grew up not liking them at all. I still don't want them to win a trophy, and I don't want them to win things because I'm a fan of Manchester United.
On the left side of defence, Dennis Irwin was their ever-reliable left-back, able to lead the troops by humble example. Another inexpensive signing by Ferguson, He came over from Oldham in 1990 for £350,000. Irwin is tied with fellow Manchester United great Roy Keane as the most successful Irish footballer in history, having won 19 major trophies. At centre-back, Rio Ferdinand was an immense presence at the heart of United's defence for more than a decade. Classy and lightning quick, Ferdinand was once considered an English Beckenbauer. Not quite, but he always gave his all for his team and his supporters.
The fans keep coming and turning up, and it's our duty to go out there and entertain them and give them something to cheer about.
Next to Ferdinand on our Man United greatest starting 11 is Nemanja Vidic. A bruising beast of a central defender who always put his body on the line, Vidic and Ferdinand formed United's fundamental central pairing in their successful 2008 that saw them win Premier League and UEFA Champions League titles.
Vida's been a brilliant player over the years, probably the greatest defender I've played with, and I've played with some good ones, but he's right up there.
At defensive midfield, Duncan Edwards was a true English legend. One of the casualties of the Munich air disaster, Edwards was a powerhouse on the pitch, and despite dying at just 21 years of age, he's considered one of the greatest English footballers of all time. At central midfield, nobody represented Manchester United on an international stage better than Sir Bobby Charlton.
First for Bobby Charlton to score the winning goal of the day.
With sublime technical abilities and a powerful shot, Charlton made the senior side as a 19-year-old and was one of the few survivors of the Munich air disaster when he was pulled to safety by goalkeeper Harry Gregg.
When the accident happened, it was demoralising for everyone. You know, everybody suffered. The families, the fans, the players, and it was just, it was so unbelievable, you know.
Charlton's impact on the club was unbelievable. The man known as Mr. United was a 1966 World Cup and Ballon d'Or winner, as well as a 1968 European Cup winner. He also held club records for most goals scored and most appearances, and even had a stand named in his honour.
The philosophy has always been at Manchester United that you don't do things ordinary. You always, if you can, try to be adventurous. And that was the philosophy of Matt Busby, and that's the philosophy today.
At right midfield stands football superstar turned original British pop icon, Northern Ireland's George Best. European Footballer of the Year in 1968, George Best played a key role in Matt Busby's hunt for the Holy Grail, scoring the game-winning goal in their European Cup final victory against Benfica at Wembley. The fifth Beatle let alcohol get the better of him, stunting his already immense potential and accomplishments.
I suppose I drank the same as I played or trained. I wanted to be the best trainer, I wanted to be the best player, and I wanted to be the best drinker, which isn't very smart when you're a professional athlete.
With 181 goals in over a decade with the club, nobody on the British Isle was better than Best. At left midfield, arguably the greatest player to ever wear the Red Devil uniform, Portugal's Cristiano Ronaldo. Crowned the best player in the world in 2008 after leading Manchester United to Champions League glory, Ronaldo only spent 6 seasons with the club, but 2 of those were out of this world. In the 07-08 season, he scored 42 goals in 49 appearances, and followed that up with 26 goals in 56 matches in 08-09. He won 2 straight Premier League titles, an FA Community Shield, a Football League Cup, a UEFA Champions League, and FIFA Club World Cup. He moved to Real Madrid in 2009 for €94 million, making him the most expensive player at the time.
I really miss English football. For me, it was one of the best years in my career when I was there in Manchester United. Everyone knows that. It's the club that's still in my heart.
At forward, with his collar turned upright, stands French talisman Eric Cantona. An absolute force of nature, Ferguson pulled off his biggest coup when he lured him away from Leeds back in 1992. And the King returned the favour by transforming United from perennial contenders into multiple champions. With his fabulous feet able to score mesmerising goals, as much as he could karate kick abusive fans, Cantona was an artist, an icon, and a club legend. And finally, striker Denis Law takes the final spot in United's greatest starting 11. The only Scottish player to have won the Ballon d'Or back in 1964, Law missed the club's 1968 European Cup final due to injury, but belonged to Matt Busby's holy trinity of Best, Charlton and Law. A prolific goalscorer, Law won 2 First Division titles, 2 Charity Shields and the FA Cup in 1963.
United continued to play great football, but their fans had to wait until the 39th minute for a first goal by Denis Law.
So there you have it. Manchester United's greatest starting 11, with so many talented stars to choose from. Many of their modern-day stars like Beckham and Keane, Giggs, Scholes, even the Premier League's most prolific goalscorer of all time, Wayne Rooney, got the chop. Still to come, Manchester becomes a special place. If you looked at their history, one thing you could say about Manchester United is that they're consistent. The great Sir Matt Busby era, then a lull. The great Sir Alex Ferguson era, then lull. On May 27th, 2016, Manchester United fans hoped they started a third great era with the signing of the special one as their new manager, Jose Mourinho.
Man United is one of these clubs where you need really to be prepared for it, because it's what I used to call a giant club. And giant clubs must be for the best managers, and I think I'm ready for it.
He then set out to make a few giant signings. One big name was a 34-year-old many claimed was Mourinho's Cantona, Sweden's greatest ever footballer, Zlatan Ibrahimovic.
Approved age is just a number. Everything is in your head. Whatever you want to do, you will do it. It's a mastermind game.
Can you
so
tell
if
me?
I want to make it, I'll make it. If I want to do it, I'll do it. I'm not worried at all.
Proving age is indeed just a number, Zlatan scored the winner in United's 2-1 Community Shield victory over 2016 Premier League champions Leicester City. But the biggest of them all was a young Frenchman who broke the world record as the most expensive footballer ever. The 105 million euro man, Paul Pogba.
It's great to win titles, to win things, to win big things. That's why I just think I'm focused on about this, and that's it. I'm just ready to go and work on that and just kill it.
The Red Devils seem to always be able to rely on an endless slew of stars, and it seems an endless pit of funds. In 2005, self-made billionaire American Malcolm Glazer raised his profile with a $1.47 billion takeover of the club, but its fans were bitterly opposed. But the reclusive businessman stuck with it, and in 2012, with the help of his sons and partners, United floated on the New York Stock Exchange.
I think the United States market clearly understand what sports business is.
it's an attractive opportunity for us to bring this great club to a great market. We're looking forward to it.
Glazer passed away in 2014, but not before returning the club to financial stability. Fans and footballers are united once again, and the future looks good. They're one of the world's most valuable teams with one of the world's biggest fan bases. They've had some of football's biggest names and garnered its greatest trophies. Over a century has passed since Manchester United came into existence, but it seems as though the Red Devils are timeless. With victory in their veins, they cannot but continue to stay true to their title-winning pedigree. And that is the truth.